Hi, this is Lars with Road Bike Rider, and today I'm going to tell you about the KBO Breeze e-bike. Now, I've been riding this bike for a while, testing it, and first of all, let me just start out with the things that I think are cool about this e-bike, like just the quick bullet points in case you're looking at this bike and considering it. It's got 27.5-inch wheels, which is a good size. They're maneuverable, but they're big enough that they're like mountain bikey. But here's the coolest thing, is that they've got really nice Pan-Eraser tires on here. And if you see this right here, that is a reflective strip. So if you're riding when it's getting dark and people's headlights are on, these just light up and are really reflective, which is great. Also, the bike has a headlight. You hold the button down, the plus button down for 3 seconds, and it turns on the headlight. And it has a red light back here that works as a brake light. So when you're slowing down and you hit your brakes, it lights up. So that's going to be good for traffic. So since this is a commuter, these things are important. I also like it that it has front and rear fenders, because if you're riding and let's say you took it into work one day or you took it shopping and now it's sprinkling. Well, you do get wet when you're riding a bike, but really the worst part about getting wet when you're riding a bike is no fenders, because the tires they throw grit in your face. They make a skunk stripe up your back. It's really unpleasant. And fenders, they stop all this, and it keeps you way drier. It's really just the wet that you're getting from the water falling from the sky and not from the bike throwing dirty street water on you. I really like fenders. So let's talk about what kind of bike this is. Now, it has a 500-watt hub motor. A hub motor, there's two types of hub motors. Maybe there's more than two types, but the two main types are a mid-drive motor or a hub motor. A mid-drive motor is a motor usually is located down here that powers from the cranks. A hub motor is actually in the wheel, and it's back here. You can see it. So this is a hub motor bike. That's what makes it less expensive. That makes this bike a good deal, because the hub motor is less expensive than a mid-drive motor. Now, this bike, it's got Shimano shifters, which is great. It's got a 7-speed in the back, an Altus derailleur, which is it's a good derailleur. It shifts great. I mean, it's low-end Shimano, but it is actually Shimano, and Shimano makes good shifters. The shifters themselves are also Shimano, so both the shifter and the derailleur. In the front, you've only got one chain ring. Now, 7 gears is plenty with this bike, especially with 500 watts of power in the back. You can get up any hill. You can go wherever you want with this bike. It has plenty of power with 500 watts. Another interesting and cool thing about it is that it's got this throttle right here. So if you're feeling super lazy, you can literally just use the motor, the hub motor, and ride it around sort of like a moped or something, where you're just using all motor power and not pedaling at all. So that's nice too. So let me talk about some of the features that it's too many to keep in my head, so I've got my notes in front of me here. Now, this is a really nice 48-volt, 16-amp-hour battery. That's a big battery, so it's going to provide a lot of power, but also good range. So you can get anywhere from 30 to 55 miles on this thing. In the real world, now, why such a range? Because if you're riding around with a throttle and you're never pedaling, well, it's going to use the battery a lot faster. I weigh between 150 and 160 pounds. If somebody sits on it and they weigh 250 pounds and they're using the motor, well, it's going to use more battery power, of course. If you're going all uphill, it's going to use more battery power, things like that. So the range completely depends. If you're just using level 1 assist instead of level 5 assist, it hardly uses any battery power, and you'll probably easily get to 55 miles. Here's some other cool things about this. Now, the battery on this comes off, and it has a key like this that locks. So all you have to do, if you're going inside, someplace, you can unlock it, and then you can, well, of course, you can take the battery with you. You basically, you take it off, and then the whole battery goes with you inside. Here we go. I forgot how to use the lever. And then you can take it inside to charge. So like, let's say you live at an apartment complex or something, and you want to keep it downstairs in the bike racks locked up down there, or you have some bicycle room, or you want to keep this in the garage, but you want to charge it in the house where you have power. Well, you just take the battery in with you. Same thing if you go to work or you go to the supermarket and you lock it up, you can take the battery with you just to make sure that it's not as appealing for somebody to steal, because then it's just an e-bike with a hub motor, but you can't use it without the battery because it's the battery that goes with this bike. So that's a cool both security issue and a convenience issue. So as I said before, this has 5 levels of assist, 1 through 5. Now, 1 will give you, a little bit of assist. It usually tops out around, I'd say 12 or 13 miles an hour. So if you don't want to go that fast. And it also means when you pedal it, it's not helping you as much. So you're using more of your power and less of the motor's power, and that's how it works. Whereas if you want to go really fast, like you're commuting to work, you're running late, or you're on a road where there's car traffic around you and you want to more stay closer to the speed of traffic around you, you can put it on assist level 5 and get it up close to around 25 miles an hour. And that's a reasonable speed. And it feels quite comfortable at that speed, because another thing about these Pan Racer tires is they're very wide tires. So they give you a feeling of stability on this bike. And also a wider tire, you have a lot more air volume in the tire. So that makes the ride a little more comfortable too, because it works as cushioning and like a suspension. And speaking of suspension, the bike does have a suspension fork in front. So if you're hitting a pothole or something like that, it's great. Now there's no suspension in the back, so if you hit that pothole, it's gonna hit the back, so you still wanna watch where you're going. But basically, it makes it way easier on your hands when you're riding around. Another cool feature, this has a built-in bell that's built into the little brake system here. Now, when I'm riding on bike paths, I really prefer bells to yelling out on your left, or I'm coming up behind you. When you yell at pedestrians or runners, it startles them and they get angry. A bell, no one ever gets mad at a bell. And so even on bikes that don't have a bell built in, if I'm ever riding on a bike path, I always buy a bell and install it. So the bell is terrific and I recommend it. What else about this bike? Let's see. It weighs about 62 pounds. So it's heavy. Now, this is part of the weight right here. The battery is quite heavy. This is a lithium-ion battery. It has Samsung cells in it, by the way, so it's a good battery. So when you're carrying it out to your house or whatever, I can tell you it's not light, but it's reasonable. And what I do is, like, I'll sort of roll it up the steps. I'll put this away later. So when you pick it up, you'll feel that quite a bit of the weight is on the back end, because you've got the rack back here, the controller, and the hub motor itself. The hub motor itself is fairly heavy, so that's where the weight is. The front end of it is pretty lightweight, so when you carry it, you sort of heft the back end, and the front sort of takes care of itself. One other feature that I was just going to tell you about the bike. So when you're using it, you just turn on the motor by pushing the button on this controller, and there's a plus button and a minus button, and that's really all there is to it. If you want more assist, you hit the plus button, and you can see the levels of assist: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get it to the level that you want. You can see your speed on here. You can also see how much battery life you have left, so you can see as your battery's going down, oh, I need to charge it, or whatever, and that's useful. Now, the rack itself is also useful. I would say you could put about 50 pounds worth of stuff on here. It's a well-designed rack that has like a triangle here that supports the rack itself, which makes it pretty sturdy. The bike in total has a capacity of about 300 pounds. So that's you plus any cargo that you carry. One other really terrific feature about this bike is this, it has a really heavy-duty kickstand in the back. You can sort of hear it. It's hard. I have it flipped around so you can see the drivetrain, but since it's a heavy bike, it's important to have a really good kickstand. And this one has like, it's big at the bottom and it has rubber covering it, and so it grabs good. I mean, the bike is sturdy when you have it. It's not going to fall over. And so that is a good feature. And also they installed it back here in the back where it's right where the hub and the weight of the hub is, so it's well balanced. Now, for the price of this bike, it is an amazing deal, I think. The other thing, it has metal flat pedals, so they've got pretty good grip on them, and they also have reflectors. But since they have these little metal grips, your feet are not going to fly off the pedals while you're pedaling, so your feet are going to feel safe. Back here, it has a handle to help lift it if you're trying to put it someplace. That's also a cool feature. So this was the KBO Breezer. If you're looking for a cool commuter e-bike to ride around the neighborhood or ride to work, consider this one. Okay, I'm going to do a little separate cut here where I show you how to take the battery on and off and how it works. Now, you see, it comes with keys, and the battery is locked in place. Now, you can charge it down here, so you can leave it on the bike if you want to charge it on the bike. You don't ever have to take it off if you don't want to. But if you wanted to charge it inside, you can take the battery off. Here's what you do. You get the key, you put the key in, you turn it. Now there's this lever right here, you pull on it, and then the battery comes right off like that. Now when you want to put it back on, you come down here first, put it in place, and then you click it, and then there it is. It's right back on. And now if you try to take the battery off when the key's not in it, it won't work. It's locked in place. So that's how the battery works. And one other thing that I'd like to show you, since we have the bike turned around in this direction, that I didn't talk about before, is this bike has mechanical disc brakes. So disc brakes are these brakes right here. Disc brakes, generally, they work a lot better in rainy weather. They also work better in general. They have a lot more stopping power than the old kind of brakes, rim brakes that you see on older bikes. So these are great. And what mechanical disc brakes means specifically is there's two types. There's hydraulics, where it would be hydraulic fluid that's in here that connects it down to this thing and then makes it grab the brake. Or there's mechanical ones where it uses a wire. And so you see there's a wire here, and when you hit the brakes, the wire pulls and then it clamps down on the rotor and it slows it down. Now, hydraulic brakes are more expensive, but for a commuter bike like this, a mechanical disc brake is actually, I think, a better option because they're more reliable as far as like if the hydraulic fluid in your hydraulic brakes, if you get a bubble in there or something like that, then the brakes don't work very well. It's hard for a regular mechanic to work on brakes like this, but any bike shop knows easily how to deal with mechanical disc brakes because it's very simple mechanically. And they do have plenty of stopping power in spite of being mechanical. So I like that about it. One other thing about this bike, let me talk about what size you can be. Now, it's really easy to adjust the seat. They say that the bike is suitable for somebody that's 5'4" all the way up to 6'4". Now, my wife is around 5'2", and I would say that the whole 5'4" thing is correct because she could get on it, but it felt uneasy to her, like it was hard to get her leg over, and the pedaling distance, and it felt too big and a little scary because since it does have 500 watts of power, then you start pedaling and it starts to go, and so she did not feel comfortable on it being 5'2", but I think if you're 5'4", those extra 2 inches would be all that you'd need. So I believe that's pretty accurate. I am 5'8", and I found it perfectly comfortable. And I've had a friend ride it who's 6 feet, and he also was able to easily set the seat the way he liked it. So that's that. So when you order a KBO Breezer, it comes in a box, and you're probably wondering, well, then what? Can I assemble it? And the good news is they've thought it out pretty well. Now, the handlebars are off, but these are all connected. So the handlebars are sort of down to the side like this. And this part that holds the handlebars in place is in a smaller box. So what you do is you just set this in place, you put this piece of metal over, and they also give you all the tools that you need, by the way. And then you use the tool to tighten down the handlebars, and then it's ready to go. Now the wheels, the front wheel is off of it, the rear wheel is already on it, and the fender here is also not assembled yet. So what I found, and the pedals are not on. So the pedals are really easy to get on. You just screw them in. It's no problem. The wheel is easy. It's got a quick release. So you'll install the quick release, and then you put the wheel in place after you assemble the fender. The only thing I found a little bit tricky was getting the fender correct, where it wasn't rubbing against the wheel. But really that's just an issue of patience. So you just adjust this, and it can slide up or down until you get it where it's the right distance away from the tire. That was the trick, is that I had it like down too far, and it was bringing it too far against the tire. So if you watch out for that, it's no problem. It took me, I would say, about half an hour to put together. The instructions were pretty good. I barely needed them. They also had a YouTube video, and there's a reference to how to find the YouTube video where they show you the steps too, and that's really useful if you're not so good at like looking at directions and figuring out how it all works. You can watch the YouTube video where somebody's actually doing it, and then it's like, oh, now I get it. So it is quite reasonable, even if you're not super mechanically inclined, to put it together yourself.